Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees are indisputably the two most well-known slasher villains of all time, and arguably the two biggest names in horror, which is why they were the topics of my first two videos on this channel back when I still intended on being horror-centric. And since the two are the grandpappies of the whole big silent killer trope, they've been pit against each other in hypothetical battles by the versus battle community and horror fans alike. So no better time to tackle this head-on than on the first day of spooky season. Hopefully that's the day I get it out. Before we begin though, let me make something pretty clear. Halloween and Friday the 13th have multiple timelines as well as comics and or crossovers with questionable canonicity. I will be going over all or at least most of these in a sort of head-to-head with all their composite feats, but I will point out what versions are capable of what, especially at their peak performance since they both have their fair share of anti-feats. Except Jason X, he wins. With that out of the way, we can answer who would really win, Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees. We can start with Mikey since he is the OG slasher. One thing I can immediately give to him is his ability to keep his mask on most of the time, unlike his competition who gets unmasked in like every Friday movie. A face reveal, something I would never do. No matter what timeline we're going with, they all begin with 1978's Halloween where a young Michael kills his older sister because of a curse or just because he felt like it. Nothing too impressive comes from the original movie, but it does set the tone for the character. A very powerful man who's easily stronger than everyone else, and can possibly teleport? Look, about the whole teleportation thing, this applies to both Jason and Michael by the way, we see the both of them completely disappear between shots and suddenly appear in places with no explanation as to how they got there. You could make the argument that they just walk away when the camera isn't on them for the ooh scary factor, and they just end up at the right place at the right time. Jason's teleporting scenes are a little more blatant, and he gets teleportation abilities in both Multiverses and the Friday the 13th game, but those aren't canon, obviously. Regardless, we don't see either of them disappear in a puff of smoke and materialize somewhere else. So I feel like if you make the case for or against one of them, you should do the same for the other. So basically, it doesn't matter whether they can or can't, teleportation is a non-factor here. Nothing much for speed, he quite literally walks everywhere. Every movie depicts him as calm and slow moving no matter the situation. Like I said earlier, he does kind of disappear sometimes, and if you don't think he can teleport, it's kind of funny and terrifying to picture Michael hauling ass at Usain Bolt speeds. He is capable of moving quickly in short bursts though, typically when blitzing unsuspecting people nearby. He has the reaction speed to regularly dodge and catch swings from attackers, whether it be knife swings or regular old punches. He's by no means at bullet dodging speeds, but he does have some instances of reacting to people aiming guns at him, disarming them or redirecting the shot before they have the chance to shoot him. That and people have some pretty shit aim in this series. His strength is much more impressive though. He consistently lifts grown men into the air, many times single-handedly. We also see that he very often uses dead bodies as Halloween decorations, which he'd obviously have to move around. Also, I want to say that I love this about his character. The human head jack-o'-lantern is one of my all-time favorites. Not only can he lift people up, but we've seen him straight up throw guys long distances. One of the Halloween novels also states that he was able to move a fallen tree. So yeah, this guy's pretty strong. As for striking power, he's able to decapitate people with a kitchen knife and impale them with various melee weapons like a gun, but he doesn't even need weapons. He's able to punch straight through people, twist heads off, pierce skulls with his thumb, or straight up pop heads with a stomp. He can pretty easily break through wooden, metal, and glass doors, whether by busting them down or simply walking through them. His overwhelming strength ties well with his combat ability. He's by no means a taijutsu master, but he is able to take on multiple armed attackers at the same time, whether it be a mob at the end of Halloween Kills or a room full of cops at a police station. But his most insane stat is his near supernatural durability and endurance. In the very first movie, Michael was stabbed in the neck and the eye, although this did leave him blinded in the Blumhouse timeline, and then was shot multiple times by Loomis, which sent him falling off a balcony. What happens from here depends on the timeline. He either takes on a couple of cops then gets captured, or chases Laurie through a hospital. The movie seems to teeter-totter on whether or not he just ignores the gunshots or is blatantly bullet resistant, but the former is more likely since he has been harmed by bullets, and has had his skin pierced by much weaker things than a bullet. That being said, he has yet to be put down by gunshots, stabs, or beatings. Even a double head tap straight to the eyes did nothing but blind him for the remainder of the movie. It's never explicitly stated, but it's fair to assume that Michael has some sort of healing factor. We unfortunately don't get any shots of shirtless Michael, so we don't know how these wounds affect his body long term, but aside from the Blumhouse timeline where the damage did accumulate and leave him weakened, he can more or less bounce back from all non-fatal damage, if given enough time. Most notably the hospital explosion from Halloween 2 where his body was completely engulfed in flames, the barrage of bullets from Halloween 4, and was completely unaffected by the electricity that made a man's head explode as well as lit up the entire house. In the Chaos comics, which take place before H2O, he was able to survive a church explosion, comfortably putting his durability in the small building to building range. It should be noted, however, that the movie feats did leave him comatose for a year and 10 years respectively, so attacks on this level isn't something he could just shrug off at any given time. Michael is also deceivingly clever. Even as a kid, he was able to pick off the other kids at the loony bin who wronged him, without being caught. In his grown age, he protected himself himself from Laurie's fire trap, wears disguises to get close to unsuspecting victims, sets traps, and has swapped places with other people leading to his escape in both the movies and the comic books. He really f***ed that guy up in the comics. Knocked him out, put a mask on him, broke his hands, and cut his tongue out. Crazy stuff, and we need more like it. Miramax, please don't f*** this up. My heart can't handle it. But my heart's been broken over old Jason Voorhees for the past, 15 years? Holy shit, I'm really old. Jason made his debut as a killer in the second Friday the 13th movie back in 1981, and didn't sport his iconic hockey mask until the third movie in 1982. His original outings as a masked killer left a lot to be desired. He was clumsier and just much less powerful. But he did have some pretty nutty feats, like how he could cave in a dude's skull or burst straight through a wooden door. He was still eventually defeated and hacked to pieces by a young Tommy Jarvis, which left him dead for years. And if strictly going off this version of the character, I'd say Michael washes Jason pretty handily. But upon his resurrection in the sixth movie, Jason was a different beast entirely. He immediately takes a shovel to the back of the head, which would have definitely put him out of commission before, then shoves his hand straight through a man's chest. As for speed, we get kind of the same slow-moving brute who inexplicably catches up to everyone off screen. Might be teleportation, but like I said, non-factor. Unless we take the 2009 reboot into account, then yes, this man can run, and it's horrifying. And for strength, he's very easily capable of lifting and throwing people pretty far distances, crushes head on multiple occasions, stomps straight through people, decapitates a man with one punch, and can punch and stab straight through thick metal doors. You know, basically everything we just went over a few minutes ago. He normally rocks out with his trusty machete, but he doesn't shy away from ranged weapons, whether it be throwing knives or a harpoon gun. But this is where the battle gets a lot more one-sided. The durability, endurance, and the difference in their healing factor. Zombified Jason is able to no-sell punches, stabbings, gunshots, and even survive large-scale explosions. Again, nothing new here, but Jason's ability to heal puts him on an entirely different level than Michael. Jason's been tagged by guns that hit much harder than anything Michael's been hit by, like two guys with machine guns or shots from a helicopter turret. Jason's come back from having his body blown apart on multiple occasions. He's even come back from being dragged down to hell, so he is effectively immortal. Granted, sending Jason to hell would likely count as a loss for the guy. Michael's immortality is questionable, but Jason's is undeniable. But Jason has been beaten before, although he hasn't been killed for good. Michael doesn't have the edge in physical strength. If anything, I'd give it to Jason, albeit barely. But since he only has a kitchen knife, Michael doesn't have the means to put Jason down permanently, bar for a one-shot decapitation. If you really want to highball Michael's durability by using this scene as proof that he's completely bulletproof, while ignoring the fact that it took him a whole year to recover, and lowball Jason's durability, and I mean really lowball it, by saying that his body can be pierced by bullets, then you can possibly make an argument for Mikey taking the win, especially if you link his reaction speed to bullet timing speeds. It's just a lot of mental gymnastics you have to do. Even then, Jason can hurt and kill other characters who can withstand the exact same level of damage Michael survived, and Mickey isn't surviving this. Speaking of which, Jason has fought characters like Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Ash Williams from the Evil Dead series, and of course Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street. He does have his fair share of losses, but they usually come with extensive preparation from the more human characters, and he lost to Freddy in the Dream World where he's basically a god. He also lost to Tina Shepard's psychic powers back in part 7. They were able to overpower him with telekinetic attacks, something Michael obviously doesn't have, but they would have lost and did lose a physical confrontation. And his quote-unquote deaths are typically periods of time where he's trapped or dormant, as opposed to Michael who needs long periods of time to heal from lesser wounds than Jason has recovered from. This fight is by no means a complete one-sided 10-second stomp, but Jason just takes the edge in all stats aside from intelligence and maybe reaction speed. The both of them can fight through pretty nutty amounts of damage, but Jason would eventually win in a battle of attrition. The winner is Jason Voorhees. Unscripted final thoughts here before the outro. Although I do believe the fight is like closer than many probably believe. Just the way their powers work doesn't lend itself to many different variations of that fight. Compare that to something like, I don't know, Scarlet Witch and Superman. There's different mindsets they can go into it with. There's different powers they can immediately jump in with. There are different versions of that fight that determine who wins. But this one is just big guy with a knife versus big guy with a machete. There's just not a lot that can happen there. This video did not come out on the 1st, was out of state then out of town for a while, so this video came out way later than I would have liked. Thanks for watching of course, but I don't know how many more shitty horror movies I can binge watch. Huge thanks to Something in the World for today's thumbnail. His Twitter's down in the description as per usual. Video on Bill Cipher's still coming out. The Book of Bill just got here, so I can start on that video. And I'm also working on the Dead by Daylight Survivor ranking video. But subscribe to see when those are out, and I'll see you guys later.